here, okay? This porch is an 1800s edition. This doorway is the doorway through which George Washington walks when he writes in his diary, December 1785, that he's coming to dinner, and his business partner, Mr. Lee-Fendall, he are working together on the Potomac Canal project for his. Mr. Lee-Fendall's built this new house for his new bride, okay? And so, as we go through, I will show you the changes that were made in the 1800s, like these windows, and these long windows over here. You'll get a better view inside.
Okay.
They were all to bring more light in. The doors changed from here to there. Okay, so those are some of the changes that were made in the 1700s. We'll talk some more about them in a minute. So I want to show you this.
Okay.
This is what the house is like.
Okay.
It is a brick post and beam construct.
Yeah.
And that is, notice what I call messy brick, okay? Because people everywhere can't really consistently fire brick so it's nice and even and smooth, and you can have the kind of brick structures we have nowadays. So they would build these interior walls, and then they would cover them with lathing and plaster, okay? So you can,
This is the cover?
this covers, this is all brick, all the way, okay? So you've got this plaster covering them.
Right.
And but you can also see the post and beam construct
Yeah.
that was very common in that period. Now you're also standing in a large hallway, which would have been used very commonly as a dining room also. Because this room we're going to go in is set up as a dining, but it was really the family room. Okay? And furniture was not kept, you wouldn't keep your table in the middle like we do nowadays. It was all pushed against the walls, and most tables were not large like that because they were multiple tables of the same height that would be pushed together, so they could then be taken apart and put around the room, or use a small one in front of the fireplace, maybe one in front of the window, so that the family, if you're building a fire in the winter, you're not going to go build another fire in another room, you know. So you're going to, this is going to be where the family is going to be doing most of their activity.
Right.
This hallway is your dining hall in that early period. We're going to go into a room in the 1800s that was converted into a dining room, but this was, we could fit over 25 people and serve them in this area here. So this was your dining hall in the 1700s. And this is all original construct here.
Yeah, beautiful.
Now these surrounds, they are put in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Casanova is actually showing off. Now this room is, again, has a lot of portraits in it that probably would have been in the room where you would receive guests formally.
Right.
But because we're talking about that Federalist period here, we have most of the family portraits in this room. The only one we left in that room is Richard Lee, and you can see him there. Richard Lee is very important in the Revolutionary War. He is the guy who introduces the Declaration of Independence on the floor of the Continental Congress. Okay? So this would have been a family member that you would have had a portrait and you would have had in your house.
Yeah.
Now the other portraits in this room are Light Horse Harry Lee. He is very important also during the Revolutionary War. He's in that close band of young men around Washington. He's a good friend of Washington, along with Hamilton and Lafayette. And he will be important in many of the battles in the South, along with Nathaniel Greene. Also over here, we have some more Lees. This is Arthur Lee, and he is a physician in Christ Church. Have you been there yet?
No.
Okay, Christ Church is one of the oldest churches here in Alexandria. And many people, Washington, Robert E. Lee, all these famous people belong to this church, okay? And Arthur is a deacon in Christ Church and a physician. I tell you that because I want you to realize he's a real straight arrow. He's a real not fun guy at a party, but you might say real straight arrow.
Okay.
They're going to send him and his brother William to France to
Okay.
find out where is the money, because France wants to help this American Revolution, but they've been at war with England for 100 years and they don't want to do it overtly. So they are going to try to get the money to us sort of under the table, if you will, okay? And so George Washington and the Continental Congress are waiting for this money, and they send Arthur and his brother to find out where is the money. Arthur comes back and tells them to send Franklin home. Because if you know anything about Ben Franklin, PBS has, or Fox also has a series called The Real Story of American History. You'll learn Ben Franklin was a great inventor, brilliant man, but he's also a cad. He has a common law wife, he has illegitimate children. He leaves his wife in America and doesn't come back till after she's dead, because he's having fun in France, okay?
Playboy.
Yes. And so anyhow, they send them over to find out where's the money. He says send Franklin home. They don't, because my theory is that they figure, well, if you've got to get money from the French, maybe having somebody who likes parties is a good idea. But anyhow, but Ben Franklin's very famous for his scientific discoveries, and so they leave him there because he is so famous. And eventually the money will come. Now this room is set up for the family to dine, and you'll notice we have wheels. Remember I was telling you how the tables will be moved around? Can you see the wheels?
Oh, yeah.
And we have wheels over here, and we have wheels on that chair. So the furniture would have been moved all around if you look at that chair over there.
Oh, true.
Now, what happens is Mr. Fendall has married the widow. He's built this house for her. He has brought her here, and they will have a child, Philip Fendall Jr., who will be our connection to Downton Abbey. We also have a connection to Downton Abbey. I'll show you. His granddaughter will marry, I think it's the 6th Earl of Highclere, okay? Which is Downton Abbey. And they will actually come to Alexandria during their honeymoon, but they won't be entertained in this house. They'll be entertained in another Lee house. Now, what we do have now is we're going to move into our Civil War. Mr. Fendall is here. He is married the widow. She will die, and he will marry Lightfoot's sister, Mary Lee. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And when he marries Mary Lee, he is doing pretty well, but over the years he will get into trouble with finances. And when he dies, he will leave Mary no debt, but also no income. And so she will be living here trying to make a living when. If a woman back then, how are you going to make a living?
That's true.
Yes, you can't.
It's hard. No, yeah.
And so fundamentally, she just goes progressively more and more in debt over the next decade, more than decade. At one point, we know that she gives 3 of her slaves to different people to pay off her debts. Okay. And so finally, she will lose the house to taxes. And this is a theme you're going to hear as you go through the house, is that the women being left by themselves and not being able to pay taxes and losing their homes. And so what happens is Edmund Jennings Lee, who is right here, he is Mary's sister. He will move into this house, and she will go to a boarding house in D.C. and die there. And he will move in here because when the house is taken away from Mary and put up for sale for taxes, his son will rescue the house for him. And he had lived across the street there. See that nice brick house there?
Yeah.
Edmund Jennings had lived there, and he is now going to rent that nice new brick house and move into this older house. Okay, so that's Edmund Jennings will live here for quite a few years until he dies. And that will be bringing us up towards close to the period before the Civil War. But I want to point this desk out to you right here.
Yes.
Edmund Jennings, again, this guy right here,
Okay.
he is going to give this desk to one of his children.
Okay.
Who's going to take it up here to this, I don't know if you can see, was in what we now call West Virginia. It was in Virginia prior to the Civil War. And one of those posts on the front was from the USS Constitution. When they refurbished it, they gave that pillar, that mast to the Lees, and they put it as a pillar on the front of this house. It would be great if you could go visit it, but you can't because it was burned down by Sheridan during the Civil War when Sheridan burns the entire Shenandoah Valley, slaughtering animals, burning barns, burning houses. What happens is that there's an argument whether it was Grant or Lincoln that said, I want you to eliminate the Shenandoah Valley as a source of resources for the Army of Northern Virginia, Robert E. Lee's army. And because before the Midwest, the major wheat fields were in the Shenandoah Valley. They want to get rid of the, quote, breadbasket of the Confederacy. So they send Sheridan, and he will burn houses, barns, kill animals, take them. And if, you know, what happens is he'll walk up to your, they'll ride up to your house and say, you have a few minutes to get something out. This desk is what was in that house and what they got out. It was Edmund Jennings' son who had this desk up there.
Yeah.
And you can tell, if you look down here, can you see the burn mark?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last drawer they got out before that house was burned down in the Shenandoah Valley. Well, let's go into the next room and go back a few years.
Yeah.
So before we do, I want you to notice this newspaper.
Okay.
This was published in December of 1799, and George Washington dies that month, okay? They are having all sorts of events, funeral oratories. This is the famous speech given, written by Light Horse Harry Lee, that gentleman right there.
Right.
Remember I told you he was in that group around Washington. And for most American children, they learn these words, first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of their countrymen. And they were written by that gentleman over there.
For George Washington.
For George Washington's funeral.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to meet you in this room here. I'm going to go the other way.
Okay.
Now this is the big formal parlor, and this is where your guests will come. This is where you're going to show off. Okay. Back then, I like to tell kids, this is also where your Netflix is. See that little 3D thing there that you would look through?
This
you
one.
You can pick that up actually. If you want.
Oh, okay.
You can see the 3D through it. The little bottom comes off. Go ahead.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm going to change the card for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh.
See?
It was the night before Christmas.
Yes. I can't make this card get back in. We'll put it. There we go. And so these would be the videos of your era.
Exactly.
And you will be expected to entertain your guests with both tea. This is a Lee tea set. Music. And good conversation. Okay. So
this is still from the time?
this is from the time, yes.
Yeah.
And this chicory piano was actually donated back to the family. It had been typical of the 1800s.
Is that Lincoln? Mr. Lincoln?
We're going to talk about him in a minute.
Okay.
So what happens is after Edmund Jennings died, the house is rented for a little while.
Yeah.
And we have this gentleman right here who is going to buy the house.
Oh.
Mr. Casanova is going to marry a Lee, okay, Harriet Lee. And he needs a house for her because his business is here in Alexandria. So what he does is he buys the house for her. And that's how we say it stays in the hands of the Lees, because she is a Lee. And he is the one who does the last renovations on this house, major renovations. These floor-to-ceiling windows. He brought gas lighting to the house. He put in all of the surrounds. Remember I told you the wooden things around the door?
Yeah.
He's showing off. He's putting in a marble fireplace. And let me show you over here.
Beautiful fireplace, by the way.
Do you know what this is?
Let us see. Is that I'm not sure what is that.
It's a bell ringer.
Oh, for the
And the
slave?
bells are in the kitchen, just like on Downton Abbey. Have you ever watched Downton Abbey?
Yeah.
The wires run down and into our kitchen,
I've
okay?
watched Downton Abbey.
And remember I said
Downton.
his granddaughter is the one who marries into the Highclere family of the Downton Abbey fame, okay?
Okay.
Now, what we have in this room is the Casanovas done all these renovations. They move in, and they live here for a few years. and he is going to die. Remember
Yeah.
back then, disease is prevalent. You know, this
And
is-
no cure.
Oh,
probably.
no cure, that's right. Or the cure was worse than the disease sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
it throws people off. And so what happens is that she's left here now with no real income. But she does have a family, his family, which is gonna continue to help to support her. She will move out towards Dulles Airport and begin renting the house, okay? And the house will be rented when the Civil War comes along.
Oh.
Okay, so what happens is that Virginia does not secede from the Union on the first vote, but when Lincoln calls for 16,000 soldiers from the state, they secede. They vote again and they secede. This town is way too close to Washington, D.C., and within days, the Union Army will march across ridges and occupy the city of Alexandria during the entire Civil War and up and through Reconstruction. This house will be turned into a hospital, and it'll be one of over 30 hospitals here in Alexandria because we have railroads, we have roads, and we have water. They are all ways you're going to be shipping wounded men back into this town. And in this house is medical history is made, and the Army does a very good job of recording it. If you watch Mercy Street, they did a blood transfusion. It didn't occur at the Carlisle house, it occurred here. And this is the story of Private Cross. He is a 19-year-old from Massachusetts. He's wounded in the right leg during the siege of Petersburg. It has become infected and gangrenous. He is sent here. We're called the Grosvenor Branch Hospital in August, where the doctors decide that they have to amputate. They don't understand germ theory, but they do know that when a wound becomes necrotic and putrid and foul, that the person's going to die because that infection is going to get into the bloodstream. They don't understand, they just know that the person's going to die. If they don't get rid of that wound. And they don't have antibiotics. You know? So what are they going to do? They're going to amputate it. He is not recovering, and Dr. Bentley, who is in charge of this hospital, actually most of the hospitals here in Alexandria, he is the director of the U.S. Army General Hospital complex here. He decides he's going to try an experimental therapy, and people have been doing this for long time, but they don't understand ABO blood typing. They don't understand what they're really doing. They just know sometimes it works. He lucks out, and this is well documented by the U.S. Army in their medical records. He takes blood from a strong, healthy German, and he injects it using a syringe, and syringes were not like this. This is not a common syringe. This whole invention of hollow needles and glass syringes and plungers and a way to screw on the needle so it doesn't come off when you push, all of this is very experimental and new, okay? So he's in this advanced field of trying experiments. So this is an experiment. He injects the blood into our poor soldier, Private Cross, and the patient's pulse immediately becomes stronger. Cross will be discharged, pensioned, and given an artificial limb and sent home. He will die later, but not from his leg, okay? So he is one of the first recorded by the U.S. Army successful blood transfusions. Now, they don't understand blood typing. They think it's the German blood, and they take and inject it to the next guy who needs it, and he dies.
So it doesn't fit.
They don't understand any of that, but they know what it is it's the volume. It's a volume expander for these guys. If it responds that quickly, it's because it's restoring their blood volume. And that's what's happened here. And he just lucked out on the blood type our private did. So when the war ends, this house will be then, her husband's died, as I said. She will then be renting it until finally it is going to be bought by a doctor who you're going to meet when we get upstairs. But let's go on upstairs. If you'll go this way, please. This is what Alexandria looked like during the Civil War. This is where we are. This street here is that street right out there. It's called Orinoco, and that is contraction of the Indian word for tobacco. because down here were not boutique hotels, these were all warehouses. This was a very busy port in the 1800s. Before
Right.
the war and after the war, Alexandria is one of the busiest ports here on the East Coast. Now let's go on upstairs. I'm going to let you go up in front of me.
Oh, okay.
These are Lee pieces.
Oh.
Notice the mirrors on the bottom.
Yeah, why?
Ladies, you can check and make sure your
Oh, is that the
ankles
one?
aren't showing. Yeah.
Is that the? All right, smart. I think I saw that in Downtown Abbey. Oh, that's beautiful.
This is our original staircase.
Wow.
Or a renovation done to it.
Not
in the
function anymore?
1800s.
Don't function?
Pardon?
Doesn't function anymore?
No, no. Now, this floor.
It's still there? The carpet is still original?
No,
Oh,
no, no, no.
okay.
Now, this floor was carpeted, so just recently, we just tore it up, so we got it back to our original floor. And I want you to realize that this wall was not here.
Okay.
This would have been one big open room, and it would have had windows. Let me show you.
Oh, okay.
You have a window here, you have windows in the other end. This would have been a bright, cheery space in that time period. But in the 1930s, we had this bathroom put in here. So
By the renter or by
no,
the
by
new?
the owners.
By the new
back
owner.
here. You're going to
Okay.
meet them in a minute. But let's
Okay.
go on into this master bedroom.
All right.
This is a big bedroom.
Uh-huh.
Women are having many children,
Yeah.
and they are, quote, in confinement a lot of the time.
The state.
And so this whole area becomes an area that she can move around and not have to be properly corseted or dressed, okay?
Ah, okay.
And many of these rooms will also have a tea set in them and a bigger table. So this closet is not for clothes. That's what the armoire is for. The closet is for storing your tea set, storing your books, storing your sewing,
Oh.
so that you can entertain actually in this area. This is considered proper.
Private.
Proper.
Proper.
Proper. To be able to entertain in your bedroom. Because
Oh.
remember,
Oh.
if you're pregnant most of the time,
Yeah.
you know, getting dressed into these corsets is not.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I do want to show you, this is the only thing in this house we know has never left the property,
Really?
because we dug this chamber pot out of our privy when they were excavating it. Now, I want to show, this is a Lee coverlet. I want to show you these signatures in the window here.
Okay.
Can you see Myra Lee Chevalier? It won't, I've tried. 1895.
Yes.
Mary
Yeah.
Lee, 1895.
Yes.
And Hal, can you see that?
Har.
It looks like Hacks, but it's Hal. That's their dog.
Oh.
And I'm going to introduce you to them in a minute.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So what happens is, after the Civil War, there are various people renting the house. I told you Mary Casanova, Mrs. Casanova will get the house back, and she will be renting it, and then it will be sold to this gentleman here.
Okay.
This is Dr. Fleming.
Mm.
And Dr. Fleming has married, you should be able to tell me, whom has he married?
Woo.
Ali.
Oh yeah, Ali.
Okay,
The
okay.
lady on the
So-
the first floor. Yeah.
They are going to be moving in here.
Oh.
He was a Confederate surgeon, so he's a physician.
Oh, gotcha.
And he was out in the field during the whole war. So you know he's been exposed to malaria, typhoid, typhus, all sorts of diseases. When they buy the house, move in with their boys who live upstairs, and he will be able to practice for a while. Probably TB is probably what got him. We don't know for sure. Okay? Tuberculosis was still rampant here in Alexandria. My grandmother had to go to a sanatorium when she grew up here. So that to me is probably the most likely thing that he died of. So she is here, another Lee Fleming, and she is trying to save the house, and it's getting pretty bad. So what she's what happens is a lot of the women who are here
Uh-huh.
decide, including those ladies in the window there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that they're going to be giving singing lessons, and they're going to be giving dance lessons and female calisthenic lessons. Now let's go look at something here.
For free or for? Charge.
No, they're trying to make
So
money
money.
to pay the taxes,
Ah,
okay?
got you.
That was Myra Lisa Valier. Remember you saw her name in the window?
Yeah.
And that's her dog Hal. That's his, okay?
Ah, okay.
Now, we don't have a photo of Mary Lee, but we do have a photo of Maud Downham. And you'll say, why? Well, Maud is a person who, what we would call scrapbooking. She kept everything. And we have gotten all of this information from Maud. And that's how we know that they were giving these lessons. And you would say, where did these southern women get this idea for female calisthenic lessons?
Yeah,
Now, I
yeah.
understand the piano and the dancing
Yeah.
and singing. Maud.
Oh.
Maud went to school in Connecticut, and this is a picture of the gym
Ah.
where women would learn to do female calisthenic lessons. So we think it was Maud who helped them learn how to do this. Maud is also Maud's brother, Mr. Downham, was a purveyor of liquor during the Civil War. And he must have signed an oath of loyalty to stay here. He sold a lot of liquor, and all the soldiers who were here. So he's made a lot of money. So what happens is these ladies, good friend is called Mai Greenlaw. And Mai is sitting up here with these ladies, and Maud is too, listening to the fact that all the lessons they're giving, they're not going to be able to cover the taxes. They can't pay the taxes, and they're going to lose the house. But Mr. Downham hears this as he's coming up the steps, and he says, if you could just get Mai to marry me, I'll buy the house for her. So Mai marries him, and he buys the house. And they're very respectful of the family and the history, and they don't really do much to the house.
Okay, who's the man again, Mister? No, the
Her-
one that
her
married.
brother.
Oh, her brother.
Her brother,
Ah.
we don't have a picture of
Yeah.
Mai Greenwald. We need one, but
Okay.
she's in with this group of women.
Okay. Okay.
And he knows that they're all friends, so he's saying, just get Mai to marry me, and I'll buy the house. And so
Okay.
he does. Now this was part of Maud Downham's scrapbook. She was such a great saver, and it's a very funny. It's the don'ts for the woman bicyclist, and it has things on it like, don't talk about your legs at the dinner table, and shut your mouth when you're biking.
Really?
It's very funny. She had a very good sense of humor.
But that's from a newspaper.
She cut it out.
She cut it out?
Yeah, we
Wow.
blew it up to put
Yeah.
it up there, but
Yeah.
she cut it out.
Awesome.
This is the girls' bedroom.
Oh.
And this is a Green Furniture Factory bed, and this, as is that table over there. And that is Maud, and that's her certificate from Miss Baird's Institute. And that picture of the gym was from Miss Baird's Institute. Now,
the school.
this room is, again, not where you would just have one bed. You would have had more than one bed in this room, because you'd have multiple girls, like the boys. There were multiple boys upstairs. This trunk I love, because can you see the side of it? See how it says L.A. Casanova? Remember Mr. Casanova?
Yeah,
He
down there.
bought this house and renovated
Yeah.
it. This is his trunk. And what I love about it is he made a list, he put right here, of all the things that a gentleman must have when he goes on a trip. Without looking now, tell me what the most numerous item that a guy must have.
I
okay?
just saw it on
You
there.
look, it's handkerchiefs. So hygiene is very different. Handkerchiefs and towels are the most numerous items that he needs to take with him if he is traveling.
Very clean.
Because you're not going to have a Hilton to stay at, or a nice inn.
So you have,
Yeah,
to clean it.
staying, right.
Yeah. Those are the books.
The dollhouse was built during this
Ooh.
post-Civil War period for all the girls that were here.
Cool.
There is no authentication of it because it was just built, handmade.
Yeah.
The dolls are from F.A.O. Sforza, and that paperwork we do have. Now let's go into this next room real quickly before I take you to the last room. This is a room where we do want to give recognition to all of the enslaved people who built the house and who took care of the house house.
Right.
And even in the post-Civil War period, when we had, just people working in the house that were paid. And right now, we have on our board
Yes.
a relative, this guy. This is John, this is James Lewis.
Yeah.
And James Lewis was the chauffeur to John L. Lewis, the famous labor union leader. And we're going to get to why we're talking about him in a minute. But James Lewis' family is one of the reasons we have any records at all about the period when John L. Lewis was here. And this is his own apron and blouse.
This
Yes.
is- yeah.
He was a chauffeur and also carried a gun to protect
Security.
John L. Lewis. And we'll go to the other room and you'll see why.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love the way you put the pictures here.
Yes.
Very pretty. Okay.
A lot of people who help keep this. place
Yeah. It's not only one hand, it's a lot of hands.
Yeah. Now, any good Southern home would have had portraits of these gentlemen in their house after the Civil War. So we have Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and Joe Johnson, who was the head of the Army of Tennessee. Now, come on in here.
Excuse
Now,
me.
this room, this room was John L. Lewis's office. Not his, he had one in Washington.
Okay.
John L. Lewis, do you know who he is? He is one of the most powerful labor union leaders in American history. Okay? He makes Time magazine 6 times. So the head of most.
Oh, this
yes,
is him?
right there. And he comes from the coal mines in the mid part of the country. And he has been unionizing the coal miners, and he then helps unionize the AFL-CIO. During World War II, in an effort to advance the benefits for coal miners who are just being treated horribly and dying of black lung, he will organize coal strikes. This is a disaster for the country because we're in the middle of a war. And this guy can get Roosevelt on the phone because we can't afford a coal strike during a war. And he is using it to get benefits for his men. And so John L. Lewis is both beloved by the Union and reviled by the rest of America. Because during World War II, when he called for these strikes, other people's sons are dying fighting. And so these are peaceful demonstrations. My uncle lived here and he said they had to put police around the house.
This house.
People were so angry with John L. Lewis.
Yeah, this house, around this house.
Yes.
Okay. This is him?
This is him, and his wife bought the house. He didn't buy the house because she loves antiques, and you can see she sort of made it look Victorian.
You're right.
And this is his wife, Myrta. Myrta is going to die. Their daughter is going to die, and John L. Lewis is going to be living here alone with James Lewis. Remember the chauffeur?
Yeah.
Who's right here. Okay.
They have the same last name too.
Yes. And James is going to be the only person living here. Well, James doesn't live here. He has an office here in the back of the kitchen where once we had an enslaved family of 5, we now have the chauffeur has an office, and upstairs a shower and a sink and a sort of a room he can get comfortable in during the day. So when John L. Lewis dies, the only person remaining is his son. His son he is estranged from. His son has become a psychiatrist. He does not like his father. He throws out most of his father's stuff. And so we were very fortunate in having James Lewis's family have stuff that we could have from that period, like the apron and these photos and paperwork and
So
bank
he's the one who
statements.
kept.
He's the one who is in charge of all of that. Now, when John L. Lewis dies, as I told you, the son is estranged. The son is selling it to somebody who
Is that the son?
Yeah, who's going to tear it down, which is terrible because all this American history has happened in this house.
Right.
And the gentleman who is saving the house across the street, the Lee Boyhood Home, has formed a trust. He is now going to form a trust for the house.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to his lawyers to put money in the trust, and has a heart attack and dies. So we tell our guests, we'd love for you to contribute, but please don't try to buy the house because it has a bad outcome. Now
Which house is that? This house, you mean?
Mhm.
Oh, come to me. Okay.
Now let me show you the back steps. We're not going to go down them because they're so old and rickety.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this is where
Look.
the higher level enslaved people, or later on, people who were taking care of the house, like the nanny, the butler,
Yeah.
they all might have had the cook,
Yeah.
had rooms here, and it goes right down to the kitchen. Now, before John Aldous died, he developed congestive heart failure, his daughter had diabetes, and he put in an elevator.
Elevator.
An elevator, and you would call it here,
Oh, okay.
and we had to take the hook off. There used to be a hook right here,
Okay.
but people would open it, and then they would fall, so we had to stop them from falling. Because you can see
Yeah.
that, and you can see where the wiring went, and if you look down there, you'll see the hole where
Oh, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was, and if you look up here, you can see where it went in.
Uh-huh.
And if you come down here,
Oh.
you can see the elevator that fit right in here.
Oh, there's the elevator.
Yeah, it fit perfectly. It was
Oh,
fit
wow.
right in there.
Got you. Ooh.
Now we're going to go into the
Okay.
dining room where the Casanos took what was called a prep kitchen. Remember the Casanos? who
Yes,
lived in
that
the house?
picture. Yep.
They took the prep kitchen and they turned it into a dining room. Now, you'll notice this dining room does not have a fireplace.
Right.
How are you going to heat it?
Yeah.
Remember I told you he brought gas lighting to the house?
Right. Mm-hmm.
He actually had vents in the floor, so the
Oh.
gas heat
Uh-huh.
would rise up through the vents and warm this room.
Okay.
It got covered up in one of the later,
Ah.
renovations.
Ah, okay.
Now, when they would entertain,
Uh.
this room would have been very luxurious because they had money, they would have had a lot of silver.
Mm-hmm.
And so we asked you, are you ready to have dinner with them? Because you
Wow.
have to know how to use all of this dining ware.
It has name there. Sardine fork.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Wow.
what I ask you is, what do you think this is? Everybody's growing their own food. Everybody has fresh food. So if you're going to impress your guests, you're going to serve them canned goods.
Canned goods?
Canned goods.
Oh.
But what you want them to know is that you bought this canned good. So you're going to serve it in the can. Well, you don't want to put a can on your table.
Right.
So you're going to buy this pretty little ceramic piece here to put your sardines in. The top would be off.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And this pretty little fork
yeah. Uh-huh.
so that you can serve your sardines to your guests, and they know you bought the sardines, you bought the container, you bought the pretty little fork.
Oh,
okay? And
wow.
that's
Okay.
right there.
That matters, huh? Okay.
Now, well, it's rude to talk about money,
Yeah.
so you show it.
Yeah,
Okay?
exactly.
Now, this is another thing that you'll go into most antique stores. If you look, you'll find some of these, and
Yeah.
you look at the bottom of them, and they have a hole in them.
Okay.
And that doesn't make any sense. You can't put a liquid in there.
Right.
This is for condensed milk. People used condensed milk as a sauce back then.
Sauce. Okay.
Sauce.
I use that for milk instead.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And so what would happen is they would buy a can of condensed milk,
Yeah.
take the lid off, put it in here,
Uh-huh.
serve it during the meal, okay?
Ah.
And then at the end of the meal, because they don't throw anything away,
Uh-huh.
if you try to get a can of condensed milk out, it's going to be very sticky.
Right. So you push it
So,
up.
You have
Smarty.
the hole in the bottom so that
That's
you can
smart.
push it up.
Okay.
Okay, we are going to end the tour. First,
Ah.
I want to tell you to go to this beautiful place up in the Shenandoah Valley.
Ooh,
And that
hopefully.
is, there gentleman
Oh.
in that dining room that had the soldier.
Mhm.
He is a Height Lee, and this is the Height family, okay?
Mm.
Now, in here, this was the butler's pantry. When the
Ah.
Casanos renovated, they had a butler's pantry. That door, there's all in here where our bathroom is now, was where he would prepare the food.
Yeah.
And then he had another opening that they would pass the food to him from
Ah,
the kitchen. And we'll
from the
go look
kitchen.
and see that now.
Ah.
This way, 'cause this is where the butler's pantry was.
Okay.
I'm going to have you go on down there.
All right.
And I want you
this
to
is
look at these bells.
Yeah.
Okay, these are our connection to Downton Abbey besides
Yeah.
the relatives.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you see on the other side of the, you see that door? There's
Yeah.
two little doors?
Mhm.
That would go into the butler's pantry, pass the food into him. This is obviously not original.
Okay.
When Mrs. Now Lewis moved in, she liked the colonial period, so she built this colonial looking fireplace here.
Okay.
And back here where Amanda is working is
Right.
where John L. Lewis had his office.
Oh.
James Lewis, I said.
James.
James Lewis had his
The
office.
chauffeur? The chauffeur?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's also where some of the people who actually helped save the house would work and live in later years, okay? And it has an upstairs with a bathroom in it.
Wow. Okay.
And we're gonna go out and we'll see all this from the other side.
Gotcha. Okay.
Again, the Casanos put the porch on.
Ah.
What happened to that little piece of paper? I had it with me, I wanted to show you.
Yeah. It's on the top of the.
Is it in
Yeah.
here?
I think.
No, it's not there. I laid it down, I think.
Oh.
Carried it around the house.
Or you give it to me? I think you give it to me.
I gave that to you, but there's no, here's, I don't know where it is right now. I'll try to hopefully it's in the drawer here. Let me show
Okay.
you. I want to show you where the dead house was. Okay.
Whose house, sorry?
See this little structure here?
Yeah.
We're going to go outside here.
Oh.
And where the bench is where the dead house was.
Oh.
In the early, about 10 years ago, they did some more renovations out here to try to see what this looked like. They have maps, tax maps, etc., that tell them that this, when Mr. Fendall built this house, he had his office out here. He had pigeon coops, rabbit hutches, his foreman's office, gardens. That's a privy. You know what a privy is? An outhouse. That's the outside toilet there.
Ah, okay,
It was wood then.
Ah.
They had the stables next to it.
Oh.
So this
okay.
didn't look like this at all
Ah,
in the
okay.
1700s.
But the trees are here. Was here.
No, this is 1800.
Oh, okay.
1800. Well, some of them might have been, but they had to design around them. 1800s is when all of this was changed to this much more Victorian garden. But
Okay.
come on out here.
All right.
I want you to turn around. And
Oh.
you can see why it's called telescoping style. Like a telescope is small here and big here. So you had the small, shabby with no insulation there. Then you had the kitchen. Then you had the dining room. And then you had the formal part of the house. The porch was not on.
Right.
You can tell it's younger because it has brick. But you can see the original foundation for this house. So this is called Maryland telescopic style, which Mr. Fendall came from Maryland, so he built it in a style he liked. And so this is how you can see it. Also, you can see, as I said, the original foundation wall. If you look over there, you can see the original wall that encompassed this whole area.
Oh, okay.
And this was original except for 10 feet sold at the end of the Civil War. And as I said, we know during the Civil War it was a hospital. When somebody dies in the summer, they have to get them out. And that's when they would take them. This was like a spring house that was over there where that bench is. And they would put the dead body in there until the ambulance came around and recovered them at least once a day when there wasn't a battle. Now, the only last thing to see here is our 150 to 200-year-old magnolia, black walnut, and ginkgo trees here.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Wonderful. There's what is this? There's
Just a garden.
Oh, okay.
We have a board member who does beautiful garden work. But here, we'll walk over here and we'll walk back.
Okay.
So you can see why it made sense you'd have the privy and the stables next to each other here.
Uh-huh.
So the herb garden would not have been there originally, but
That's new?
later put
Okay.
in.
Uh-huh. I see. Okay. Are we
Questions?
not? Oh no, no. Are we done?
Yes, we're done.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna.
The butterflies are really floating around for you.
They love to be with me. All right, hold on. I'm gonna.
Yes, there are butterflies everywhere.
Wow. Okay.